that have become, I think, more or less the envy of the world for real,
Yeah.
like in a real way,
Yep.
including Africans, right?
Yeah.
Has created a culture, traditions in their own right, through those several generations. And I was more or less like bigging that up and saying that, that's a culture that I think that is a new root, more or less, that we can grow from and that you could grow from. I got backlash to say the least. It was more like, yeah, he was insulted because I was telling him like, you all have created more or less your own culture in a way that, like, it's true. You all, in terms of your ancestry, have been stripped from where you come from strategically, and like, like
It's been very intentional along the way.
very intentional, right? But in doing so, have created your own culture outside of that.
Thousand
And I
percent.
and I was telling him, I was like, "Yo, so you all have created your own culture. There is a culture there, right? That I think should be like uplifted, honestly. There should be a pride in that regard." And his reaction to me was like he was insulted. And I wanted to get your feedback on that because I think that, even though I can go 15 generations back and say, "Oh, this is where we came from and this is why we have these traditions." Like 15 is 15. 6 is also 6.
Sure.
Traditions start from somebody saying, "This is what I think is the best thing to do," and people
Sure.
follow suit. And I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts around saying, cool, but we do have our own culture, right? And bigging up that culture and creating, like, and saying, like, as you create your generations 2, 3, 4, 5 after you, saying this is the culture that we've built. Like, like, what are your thoughts around that?
I think the most valuable asset in America, or the most valuable export, is Black culture. That's the most valuable asset that the country has worldwide. It has global currency. You go to China, you go to Japan, you go to Singapore, you go to Africa, the dress, the flavor, the style, it often mimics what starts in these urban Black American cultures,
I
whether it
agree.
be a LA, a New York, a Detroit, an Atlanta, Houston, etc., right? Or even a Durham, because Durham gets credit for the lingo around here.
Let's
Like a
go.
lot, like, let's just be clear. Like,
Let's
bruh is our
go.
word. We get to
Bruh.
claim that. Yeah, we get to claim that, right? So I agree that we have a culture, as Black Americans, that is very valuable and should be celebrated. No question. So I agree with that. I don't take offense to that at all. Like, I don't think that's even controversial, even in my opinion. Like, that's very much the case, what you said, in my opinion.
Okay.
Where I think it starts to become more divisive than constructive is where, when you're Black but you don't live in America, you don't necessarily understand like Blackness yet until you get here. I don't give a if where you are in the world, that pride in being Black doesn't really exist until you're in America and you're forced to feel what that's like, in my opinion.
Mm,
Okay.
mhm.
Because of that, what often happens is you have Black immigrants who come to the United States who often share the same mindsets as white supremacists as it relates to Black Americans and culture and so forth,
Do the propaganda
due to propaganda. And then what typically happens is they will feel what it's like to be Black in America
real quick.
eventually.
Get pulled over. They're like, but wait. Nah.
They're gonna feel it. But here's the thing, right? There are communities, little Haiti, little this, little that, like these immigrant Black communities still find ways to keep their heritage
Mhm.
protected, to keep their cultures protected, to create their bubbles of protection so that they can continue to do what they do as a community. And it doesn't necessarily include someone like myself in that bubble.
Mhm.
What often happens is, in my opinion, that's one of the disconnects in the diaspora, is that America is so open, and Americans are so, and then you get indoctrinated and you're able to tap in and claim some of that while also keep us out from some of the growth that you're getting while leveraging the flavor that you get from being here in America. You can still be in this bubble of immigrants and be surrounded by Black people and nobody there descended from Black slaves to some degree. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but I think as someone who grows up here, when I see these communities that pop up and these why is it, in my opinion, that these communities pop up and they seem to be able to develop businesses, infrastructures, even at a small scale, and they don't even necessarily seem inclusive to the Black Americans in the area. It seems more like they're insular bubble and adjacent to like white America while we're on the outside. That's my personal experience and opinion on that matter. And I think that as it relates to how you position it in terms of like how you mentioned what I think what you said is true. At this point in time, there's now new generations of people who have been born here, first generations, and they identify as Black Americans, rightfully so. You grew up as a nigga